All right. So some of this, what I'm going to cover is from last week too. So it might be a slight reminder of what we talked about last week. And then we'll get into the campaigns, what the campaigns should look like. Okay. So again, strategic influencing must transcend perpetual prospecting. So that's going to be our new mantra from here on out. That's going to be our rally cry. And basically what that says is, reach out to your clients, close that loyalty gap, and then the prospecting will be a lot less because you'll continue to get deals solely from your database, right? Which is the most important. So what is a healthy database? Well, first of all, it's first name, last name, email, phone number, and address, okay? If you have those 5 things in your database for every one of your clients, that's considered a healthy database, okay? If you got 1,000 people in your database and you only have emails for 20 of them, that means you only have 20 people in your database, okay? If you have 750 people with no emails, then that means you got 250 people in your database. Because every one of these tick marks that you take off of, that means that your database isn't as strong as it needs to be, okay? And we really only want to spend time and energy in marketing into those that we have all of their contact information. Anything beyond that, you're going to have to reach outside of your normal systems in order to handle those transactions. So what I also find interesting is you have 800 people on Facebook and you only have 50 people in your database. Well, if you have 50 people on your, or 800 people on your Facebook, then you should have 800 people in your database, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So those two kind of roll hand in hand. I mean, it's great to have people on your Facebook, although if you're not marketing to them, or you're not, I shouldn't say marketing, if you're not creating a relationship with them, if you're not giving them value, then, we got to figure out what's going on there. So every time we get a friend on Facebook, we really want to get them into our database and get their information so we can market to them in other ways. Okay, does that make sense? This means yes, this means no. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay.
Yes, Paul, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, I started off Facebook like everybody else with my close friends, and then they introduce you like you are mutual friends of friends of friends of friends, and then it becomes like 7 or 6 degrees of separation between the first friend. I don't know how to approach that person into making them a close enough friend to give over like their email address and whatnot. I'd say like the first 100 people on my Facebook page are like people I actually know. And then we branched out and I started getting slowly introduced physically to the people. You know what I mean? It's like, you said 800, then you should have 800 in your database. I don't have 800 friends. I mean, 800 Facebook friends, but I don't know everybody that closely. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand?
Yeah, I have like 4,000 people on my Facebook.
Exactly.
Right. I only know like 20 of them. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is you have to create a system that if you get a friend on Facebook, one, it depends on why you're using Facebook. If you're using Facebook for real estate, the objective is to get their contact information so you can reach out to them in other ways at the same time that you're talking to them on Facebook too. So if somebody says, hey, I want to be friends, you have a decision to make. Do I add you just so I can add you, or am I adding you for a strategic purpose? Okay. So you got to think about that, right? I need to create relationships. And in order to help me, I need to, one, know who you are, what you're doing, and all that good stuff, right? So you just got to think about what kind of Facebook you want to have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have both pages, business and personal. So I need
Yeah.
to somehow merge the two or get the personal.
No, I don't think you need to merge the two. What I would do is if I had somebody that said, hey, I want to be your friend, that'd be great. I'd be their friend. A lot like LinkedIn, right? So if I accept you on LinkedIn, sometimes it'll send me a little message, an automatic message. Now, I wouldn't do the automatic message thing. That's just, it's not personal enough. And I would introduce myself through a direct message. Hey, this is Doris. I got your friend request and I accepted it. I just want to introduce myself and let you know I'm a real estate agent, blah, blah, blah. And then just kind of go from there. And then what I would do is follow that up with, do you have a second for a quick question? So do you remember that script from Jumpstart?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Got a second for a quick question? Yes, I do. Great. If you had a real estate question, do you have somebody you would call, right? Or contact or direct message or whatever.
Okay.
And then go through that script, right?
Okay.
Because the last part of the script is, hey, from time to time I send out relevant real estate information. What is your email address? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here in a little bit too. You got to determine how healthy your database is and then kind of go from there.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes total sense.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So, oh, I lost my mouse. There it is. Okay. So some of the database extras that you can get. So these 5 are bare minimums. These are the 5 that you really, 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 really want to have in your database in order to create a 100% healthy database and to use the tools that we have. You really need all 5 of these items. And if you don't have all 5, we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's kind of your job to go get all 5, right? Just to make it a little bit easier. Now, some of the extras are birthdays. Birthdays, if you can get those, are awesome. Although many of us just use Facebook for birthdays. That's kind of why I use Facebook, is to see who's having a birthday that day, say happy birthday, all that good stuff. Okay. Home buyer anniversaries. Once you get your home buyers into your system, you want to make sure you're calling them on their anniversaries. Maybe pull up the photos from when they walked in the house for the first time, resend those, create those memories, use it as an excuse to have a conversation, right? And then any interest that you may have together. There's a program that used to be out there. It's called refer.com. I don't know if it's still out there. It'd be interesting to find out. Basically what it did is it took your top people in your database and you put them into the system, and then you put in their top 10 interests. So maybe it was biking, kayaking, hiking, or whatever. And then what it would do is it would pull in articles that they were interested in. And then the system would give you 10 articles to choose from, to send them, to say, hey, I saw this great article about hiking today. And then it created a better opportunity to get engagement from that client, right? So kind of the same stuff that you do with Facebook, although it was all in one system. So if you can keep track of their interest, that gives you a reason to have your 4 conversations. And we know one of the biggest hurdles of calling our clients is getting that reason to call them, right? Instead of just calling them out of the blue and say, hey, anybody know anybody was looking to buy real estate, right? Kind of go from there. Okay, does that make sense? Yes, speeds. Okay. Okay, just to recap what we covered last week, your database fundamentals. You have 3 different groups in your database. The first one is your core. Your core is anybody who's going to give you 2 or more deals per year, right? The next group is your SOI, which is your sphere of influence. These are people that know you and you know them, and you're going to have a 4-way conversation with them every year, right? So you got your touch campaigns, and then with that touch campaigns, you have your 4 phone calls. Your database is people that you know that may not know you, although you met them at some point in time. You don't have a lot of their information. They're kind of like a fuzzy SOI. And those are people that you're just going to put on a 30 touch or a 36 touch campaign. Okay. So remember the loyalty gap, we're going to use the 10% number. So 10% of your database is moving at any one time. Are they using you or are they using somebody else? And that's what these campaigns, we really, really, really want to shrink this number. In order to shrink the number, we need a healthy database. Now, I'm not saying if you just have an email for somebody, you throw them away, although your conversion rate for that contact is going to be greatly reduced because you're not going to be able to give them the marketing and the touches that you really want to or need to give them, okay? Now, remember, people you know, that touch campaign, it's a 12-to-2. So for every 12 people you have in your database, you should get 2 transactions. The loyalty gap talks about people you already have in there, and then we want to get referrals from them, and that's why we have the 12-to-2, okay? So for every 12 people you have in your database, you should get 2 transactions, 1 from them and 1 from a referral from them, okay? Now, what does a typical 36 touch campaign look like? Well, very simply, it's 4 two-way conversations about real estate every year. However you want to do that, that's up to you. It just can't be email. So you want to text them, call them, direct message them, video chat, in person, whatever you want to do, via Zoom, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be a 2-way conversation about real estate, okay? So you got a little bit of that's the personal side of it. So remember we talked about going from E to P, right? Does anybody remember what E to P is?
Entrepreneurship to purposeful.
Right? So I'm going to go from entrepreneurial to purposeful. So what that means is, yeah, I can do a touch campaign and all of those can be email. And they can just go out to the client and the client's going to see them. That's entrepreneurial. When we're purposeful about our lead gen and our campaigns, we throw in the 4 two-way conversations. Any real estate agent can do an email campaign, okay? If you want to be purposeful about your business, you have to take it to the next level and really make sure that you're doing those 4 conversations, okay? That was almost ugly. Now, what's great about Berkshire Hathaway is we have a different type of campaign. We can do the market trackers. Market trackers, or however you want to call it, or whatever it looks like, that's 12 rock solid touches. That's basically information about real estate to each and every one of your clients, okay? And that typically goes out 12 times a year. Now, if you don't have the market tracker, you don't have some kind of system that does that automatically, you can use the newsletters, which are in the marketing section of the back of your website, okay? Those are easy. Now, you're not going to get as much out of those as you would with your market tracker. 1, because they're a couple pages long, and 2, they're not really 100% real estate related. Now, we also have the PIP, or the property investment profile, and that can be 6 emails every year, and those are automated. So a lot of these things that we do in our system are automated, and we need an email to do that. So if you don't have a client with an email in your database, you're going to have to come up with a different way to do the market tracker, the newsletters, and the PIPs. So what that means is if I don't have their email address, I have to mail this to them. And Ruth, how much of a pain in the tush is that? It's a pain, right?
Pain, and sometimes they still don't get back to you.
Yeah. So in order to do that, then you're going to have to mail those. So you got to print them out, you got to fold them up, you got to put them in an envelope, got to put the address on the envelope and send those out. So think about that. That goes back to their healthy database. If we are missing something in there, that's going to slow us up from setting them and contacting them and give them the relevant real estate information that they need. Okay. So you can do a PIP or a pop by. Now, two things that you need to do a PIP and a pop by are an address. If you don't have an address, you're not going to be able to do the PIPs. Well, you can do the PIPs, although you'll have to create an address form, so it's not going to be as relevant. They're not going to look at that information as readily as they would. You won't get as much engagement. If you don't have a pop by, if you don't have an address, you can't do a pop by. I mean, you could stop by their work and do a pop by there. That works. We were talking about that in the class at 1 o'clock. You know, take your clients donuts. Now, when you take them donuts, take them 12. Don't take them just one donut for them. Take them a fun. And then on the lid, when you lift the lid up, it says donuts provided by Think Frank Home Team, right? Or however you want to do it. So feel free to stop by their business. Just give them a real quick. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to do anything. Just stop and give it to them, okay? Now, if you don't have those addresses, that's going to diminish your ability to be purposeful about your database, okay? Okay, any questions about this? No? Okay, awesome. Now, when you do a typical 36 touch campaign, those emails are emails like how to get a stain out of your carpet, how to get the smell out of your drapes, you know, how to oil your car or whatever that is. So those emails are not going to be as effective as doing a market tracker or a PIP, okay? They are less likely to read your junk emails than they are to look at real estate information that's relevant to them. All right. Now, if you don't have a PIP, there's different things you can do there, right? That you need an address to make that as effective as you possibly could make it. Okay. Again, we're talking about closing the loyalty gap. Now, the last one, we all have the weekend event planners. The weekend event planners is a great email. Our clients love this. Now, the only downside of doing an email campaign is you don't know if they've opened it or not. Unless they physically click on the email and look at it, you won't get an indication of whether or not it's been opened. Although, you know, if they look at the email and they just preview it, you know, we all have that preview screen there. If they can just preview it, then you'll get your name out there, and that's the most important part. That's what this is all about. This is all about being top of mind, top of mind, top of mind, so that in the 5 to 7 years, or the 7 to 10 years that somebody is thinking about purchasing a home, they think about you and your name pops into their head, right? Name association, real estate, your name, real estate, your name. I want to buy, your name. You're at the water cooler, somebody says, I'm thinking about buying, boom, your name pops up. That's what this is all about. All right. Okay, we all good about that? And don't forget, you got to have your 4 two-way conversations. Okay? When is the last time any of you have had a real estate agent call you, other than trying to recruit you, right? And just say, hey, how's your day going? Never, right? So if you want to step, yeah, never. So if you want to be different, if you want to stand out, then you need to have those 4 two-way conversations. Okay, just think about the impact. You know, the other thing is a handwritten note. When's the last time you guys have gotten a handwritten note? Jessica, when did you get it? When's the last time you got a handwritten note?
I just wrote 5 of them today. I'm sending them out and some yesterday.
Okay. Now, when's the last time you got one? Yeah, it's been a while, right? So if you want to be different, if you want to stand out, if you want to be top of mind, then send out those note cards, right? So every time you have a conversation with your client, it should be followed up with a note card. But if you don't have an address, it's tough to mail those. So while you're having your conversation, right, you're doing your forward, just say, hey, I appreciate having this conversation. I'd love to send you a handwritten note card. What is your address? You don't ever say, hey, can I get your address? You always ask, what is your address? What's your address? What's your email? Right? People are pre-positioned to just give that information as it comes out, right? So think about that. Now, the people you don't know campaign is a 50-to-1. So what that means is every time if you have 50 people in your database, you should get one transaction. Okay? Now, this database is a lot more expensive and it takes a lot more energy to send out, okay? So typically it's a 12-touch campaign. And if you're just being entrepreneurial, you're just sending out 12 postcards, right? Now, if you get those 12 postcards, how likely are you to remember that agent's name getting those 12 postcards? Yeah. How many of you get real estate postcards in your mailbox every week? Everybody does, right? Now,
All the time.
Yeah. You're in real estate. Do you remember what those real estate agents' names are?
Nope.
Right? So think about that your clients probably aren't remembering your name either if all you're doing is send them a postcard. So now, what should a people I don't know campaign look like? Well, it should be 6 postcards, right? So I'm going to send them out 6 postcards and I'm going to make sure they get those cards. I'm going to door knock on their house 2 times a year. So 2 times a year, I'm knocking on the door and saying, hi, how's it going? Okay. I'm not just being entrepreneurial. I'm going to be purposeful. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to have these people in my database. If you're not going to do this stuff, then don't bother having them in your database, right? Because you're going to be few and far between when you get these leads, right? And sometimes it takes a long time for that have not met database to pay off. So I just want you to be a little more purposeful about it. I want you to do 2 events. That event might be a coat drive or a food drive or something like that. Do a picnic. And mostly I'm kind of talking about a farm. So a farm is typically where we have that I don't know database, right? And the last one is you're going to do 2 Popeyes. Okay, so before today, did you ever hear about Popeyes? Yes? Okay, good. Then we're doing our jobs. Awesome. Now, what happens if you have missing info? Well, if you have missing info, you have to change how you market to them. So if you don't have an email, your campaign is going to be very labor intensive. Okay? I always had a rule. I never put anybody in my database unless I had their email. So I literally have 100% of emails in my database. Okay? Because I knew my marketing campaign was heavy on emails, so I knew I need to have their email address in order to do that. Okay. Now, if you don't have a phone, but you do have an email, then you're going to miss those 4 phone calls every year. And those 4 contacts are what's really going to solidify your relationship with them. Right? So you're going to be that different real estate agent that really contacts their clients, as opposed to the typical real estate agent that just sends them emails. Okay? Now, not having an address is not as critical, although it really lets you personalize each one of your contacts to them. If I'm doing a market tracker, I need their zip code. If I'm doing a PIP, I need their home address, right? If I'm sending them any kind of relevant real estate information, it needs to be personalized to them and to them only. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Are you okay, Tanya? All right, because you keep, I don't know if you're like, you can't see. Okay, all right, so now, one of the things that we always talked about was groups, right? I get this question all the time. So if I have a campaign in my system and I'm doing my 36 touch, my 33 touch, whatever it is, if I have no phone number, that those people are in a group. So if I want to make sure that I'm creating a healthy database, I can just go in there and I can pull up people that I don't have phone numbers for. And then whatever sources I have, if I have an email, if I have an address, then I'm going to make sure that I use those other systems to get a phone number for each and every one of those people. Okay?
Paul,
Yes.
there's a question about using BombBomb, but I think that's the same as emailing. Video email and email are like on the same level. Wouldn't you say?
No, video email has a much better, whenever you do, so the world's going to video. Whenever you use video, you're going to get a much better engagement than if you just sent them a regular email. They're going to be more likely to open that email than if you just sent them words. So BombBomb is great, right? So BombBomb is a good way to get them to give you more information and feel comfortable about doing so. So one of the BombBombs you might do is, you know, hey, this is Paul Frank with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I was just going through my database and I noticed I don't have your home address. So there's a lot of information that I'd love to send you that's real estate information, and it's geared personally to you. I can't do that without your address. Can you please email me back your address so I can send you all this great personalized real estate information? So that's a really good BombBomb, right? And it's helping me to get their other information. In our office, we use a call sheet, right? And on the call sheet, it very simply says first name, last name, phone number, email address. Did they give you a referral and notes? And that's all it says. So as you have this call sheet in front of you, if you notice you don't have their email address, that's your opportunity to ask them, right? Get that information every opportunity you can. And if people say, hey, I don't want you mailing me stuff, I don't want you sending me stuff, you know, I don't want you calling me. Well, you know, if they're saying that stuff to you, are they really your database? Right? Are they really people that you're going to create that loyalty gap, or, you know, to minimize that loyalty gap? So you want to think about that, right? If you have, let's say, 300 people in your database. So having a huge database is not good if you have limited information. I would rather have 200 people in my database where I have their name, phone number, and email than have 500 people in my database where all I have is email, right? So I want my database to be as healthy as possible so I can get the maximum out of it. We can all agree that we have limited time in the day, right? And everything we do needs to be very, very targeted at that limited, you know, with that limited time, I got to be very targeted with it. So do I just want to do stuff that's going to go out to everybody, or do I want to be very targeted about what I do and the information I put out? Okay. Okay, so groups. If you're going to do groups, I always did groups, no phone, no email, no address. So if I was sitting around and I had an extra hour and I'm like, hey, what am I going to do for this hour? I would just pull up, I'd go to the group, no phone. And then I would just try and get those phone numbers from those people in that group. Right? You know, send them an email. Hey, I noticed I don't have your phone number. I wanted to call and give you some great information about real estate. What's your phone number? And if you do that enough times and they don't want to give you their phone number, then you might want to think about just putting them in your database where they're just in a group. And then I could go add people to my SOI that I'm really going to go after and work with. Okay, so I'm really categorizing them in a different group and I'm not targeting them as much, and I'm spending more time going after the targeted. Okay, does that make sense? Right? If you have a phone number and you have an email and you don't have their address, the great one is, you know, send them an email with a PIP and then call them and say, hey, I just sent you a PIP. I noticed that I don't have your address. I'd love to make this customized to you and personalize you for your neighborhood. What is your address so I can send you this great information? And the majority of the time, they'll share an address with you. I mean, that makes it easy. That makes it good, right? So, you know, there's different scripts for each one of these that you can go down the line and get their information, okay? Okay, so, right, if you're gonna market to people differently, then yes, create a group for them. If you have a card club, a book club, an ethnic group, cooking clubs, first-time home buyers, bike clubs, if you are gonna market to them differently, then yeah, put them in a group. If you are not gonna spend that time and energy to market to them, then don't create more work for yourself, right? There's no reason to have 600 people in your database and have 20 different groups if you're not gonna do those different groups individually. That's just creating more work for yourself because you're gonna have anxiety over, hey, I got these people in this database. I'm not gonna advertise to them differently, so why bother creating that stress? Okay, do the activities that are gonna get you the most response instead of just doing. Now, I know a real estate agent, he does very well. He sells about 75 homes a year. He owns a bar at the same time. He has a poker group. He has a blackjack group. He has a whiskey group. He has a bourbon group, well, bourbon whiskey. And then he has a tequila group and a vodka group. And he will advertise to those guys differently. He'll say, hey, I just ran into a new, hey, I just want to let you know, I just ran into this new vodka. It's really good. You should try it. That's what he'd send to his vodka group. Okay. If you're not going to do that, then don't bother creating groups. I don't want to scare you away from it. I just want to make sure that you understand you have better things to do than create groups in your database. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. That was my last slide. I told you I'd get you out of here in about 30 minutes.